Halo, kembali lagi dalam Investor Daily Special, program yang menghadirkan narasumber-narasumber spesial untuk membahas isu terkini seputar perekonomian global maupun di dalam negeri. Bersama saya Iqbal Suitamihat, inilah Investor Daily Special selengkapnya di Investor Daily TV, IDTV, Inspirasi Investasi.
Upaya transisi menuju energi bersih di dunia masih menghadapi tantangan besar. Penelitian yang dilakukan oleh Riset menunjukkan emisi gas metana justru meningkat tahun lalu, meski di tengah upaya akselerasi pengembangan energi bersih dalam beberapa tahun terakhir. Gas metana disebut berperan besar dalam pemanasan global hingga 0,5 derajat celcius. Sejak akhir 2023, satelit Riset mendeteksi sekitar 20.000 lokasi yang tersebar di seluruh penjuru dunia masuk kategori super emitters, alias mengeluarkan sekitar 100 kg gas metana per jam. Jumlah ini meningkat pesat jika dibandingkan 15.000 lokasi yang terdeteksi pada tahun sebelumnya. Hampir seluruh lokasi buangan gas rumah kaca ini adalah wilayah kerja migas. Kemudian hampir sepertiganya merupakan situs yang diklaim sebagai pengolahan limbah emisi serta 16% dari pertambangan.
In the past year, we've detected more emissions than ever before, despite global pledges and plans to reduce those emissions made at COP28. It's clear that both industry and governments need better data and increased monitoring capabilities to detect and mitigate these emissions.
Kekhawatiran atas progres transisi energi bersih di dunia juga muncul dalam pertemuan yang digelar Perserikatan Bangsa-Bangsa pada 4 November 2024 di New York, Amerika Serikat. International Energy Agency menyebut untuk bisa mencapai net zero emission pada 2050, mineral kritis memegang peranan sangat krusial dengan permintaan bisa melonjak 3,5 kali lipat pada 2030. Beberapa komoditas bahkan bisa naik lebih signifikan permintaannya seperti litium meningkat 8 kali lipat, grafit 7 kali lipat, dan nikel 7 kali lipat. Namun PBB menggarisbawahi potensi eksploitasi komoditas di negara-negara berkembang sehingga bisa menimbulkan kesenjangan ekonomi.
There is a danger that the clean energy transition could reproduce and amplify inequalities of the past, with developing countries rich in the renewables critical to the transition banished to the bottom of those value chains, their people exploited, and their environment in jeopardy, as others grow wealthy on those resources.
Laporan PBB menyebut negara-negara dengan cadangan mineral kritis yang besar akan bisa memiliki peluang memimpin upaya transformasi ekonomi jika memiliki rencana aksi yang tepat. Tidak hanya dalam pengembangan energi bersih, namun juga lapangan kerja, geliat ekonomi, serta pertumbuhan yang berkelanjutan.
Pemirsa, sektor energi yang menjadi salah satu sorotan di tengah berbagai tantangan ekonomi dunia, terutama konflik geopolitik yang membuat pasokan serta harga energi berfluktuasi, serta progres transisi energi. Kita akan langsung membahasnya, and we have the Secretary General and CEO of World Energy Council, Dr. Angela Wilkinson, who is currently attending the world's largest and most inclusive gathering for the energy industry, ADIPEC 2024, in Abu Dhabi of United Arab Emirates. Hello, Dr. Wilkinson. How are you today?
I'm very well, and it's great to talk to the Indonesia Investor Daily special today.
Thank you so much for your time. So today we will talk about redefining the path of energy transition. So in past few years, Doctor, it's been years that the world is trying to gear up the energy transitions by gradually switching from fossil fuel, to green energy. However, some said that we are failing and currently out of track of fulfilling the target of net zero emission by 2050. What's your take on this? Are we really failing and out of track?
So we've been looking at energy for 100 years, and at the moment, most signals that we pick up say that only 6% of people believe that we are on track for 1.5 degrees centigrade, which means that we have to think differently about how we're going to take this transition forward. And we have to think also in terms of countries like Indonesia, who are still trying to get their energy additions as well as their transition going.
Okay, so what are the biggest obstacles actually causing these delays?
So two things. First of all, is the biggest obstacle seems to be affordability. We have plenty of technology, we have plenty of money. The challenge is to get them to flow to the places where they're most needed and will do most good. And we also have to bear in mind that it's not just about technology and money, it's also about people and wider and wiser uses of energy. Meanwhile, Mother Nature is reshuffling the deck, and we have to manage climate adaptation with mitigation.
So you mentioned it's not about technology and not about the money. So is it the lack of commitment?
No, I think there's plenty of commitment. It's just not going to be easy, cheap and quick. So it's not a simple problem. It really does require more people to come around the table, to work really hard and cooperatively together, and to persist in their efforts. So it's not enough to know, it's not enough to be willing. The challenge is, how do we make faster, fairer and more far-reaching energy transitions happen? And if we're going to do that, we need to get away from the supply-centric conversation and start to engage energy users in the conversation. They need to know how energy fits into their lives.
Okay, so we have read a few months ago in an interview with Forbes that the World Energy Council urged change on energy transition approach. What kind of changes do you think we should make in order to bring back our effort on accelerating this energy transition back on track, Doctor?
So before we put that Forbes article out, there seemed to be a sense that there is a single energy transition pathway. Well, there isn't. There are multiple transitions, and they are multidimensional, and they involve multiple segments of society. So what our change in the narrative was to move away from a one-size-fits-all to understanding that we have to actually lead and learn with the diversity of regions as we move forward with multiple transition pathways. We need to use all energy resources and all energy levers, financial, technical and societal. So our change is a multi, which involves more people and diverse communities.
So everything is multi, so we need to be focused, and also the support of the commitment of the member and who's willing to change or to make this transition smoothly. Is that so?
Sorry, I didn't quite catch that question.
Okay, so you mentioned about that it's multi, so it's not easy job to do because it takes time and it takes the commitment. Do you think that the progress so far is on a good track?
So progress is different in different parts of the world. I've just come from China, and China showed me its energy cloud platform. So it already connects 1.2 billion people with affordable and reliable energy. And it's increasingly using digitalization to think about how it makes demand visible, and how then, if we can look at behaviors, how we can bring behaviors into the equation. So I'm now in Adipec in Abu Dhabi, and the conversation here is different. They're looking at climate plus innovation and energy, and they're very hopeful that digitalization will bring big changes. I'm also concerned that digitalization will require more energy, and it will also require us to share more data, and that's going to be a big issue going forward.
Okay, Doctor, speaking about the policy, in your opinion, what policy changes are crucial for supporting a sustainable energy future?
So policy is quite single issue focused. We have different ministries focus on different policies, all of which are relevant to energy transitions. So the policy shift that's needed is to use more integrated policy, and for that we need a framework. And 20 years ago, we brought forward something called the World Energy Trilemma Framework. You have to manage the challenges of security, affordability, and sustainability. And neither of those are simple things. Energy security is changing. It's not just about oil and gas resources, it's also about minerals and supply chains. Affordability in a cost of living crisis and an inflationary environment is very challenging, particularly for emerging and developing economies. And the sustainability agenda has always been broader than emissions reduction in energy. We have to get real. There's a water agenda, there's a land agenda, and there's increasingly a climate adaptation agenda. I'm sure Indonesia understands the challenges of managing energy through extreme weather events.
All right. So, Doctor, the world's biggest economy, the United States, is having a presidential election on November 5th. We know that U.S. is directing billions of dollars toward clean energy initiative through the Inflation Reduction Act and the bipartisan infrastructure law. With the election of the next president, whether it will be Donald Trump or Kamala Harris, how will these two figures stand on the future of green energy development so far?
I think the world will still expect the same from the United States, and that is to have good, collaborative and constructive world energy leadership. So it's not about the individual here, it's about the policy and the frameworks and the cooperation forums, and the role of the United States will play alongside China, alongside the Middle East, alongside Latin America, Europe and Africa in bringing forward an energy future which actually secures 7 billion better lives and a healthy planet.
So you think that these two figures stand on the future of green energy development will affect the progress of the world's effort, including Indonesia?
Again, I didn't hear the question, sorry.
Okay, so speaking about these two figures stand on the future of green energy development and how it will affect the progress of the world's effort on this energy transition, especially Indonesia. How do you see this?
So what the United States can work as a leader, it can be a constructive leader. That means it can do what it needs to do with its own societies, but it can also have a helping hand on other societies. Like I say, we're not short of money or technology, but making those flow to where they can do most good. Technology transfer is an important issue for Indonesia's future, and so is capital investment. And the US plays a role in shaping both those flows. But we also need to get real. The energy system of the United States is not the same as the energy system needed for a region or a country like Indonesia. They're very, very different circumstances. So countries have to lead with and learn from each other. They have to collaborate with each other, and they have to make a space so that we can bring different stories of the better energy futures together and work constructively.
Okay, so everyone or every country need to collaborate. I highlight about the collaboration itself. How do you see this so far, the progress, Doctor?
So our challenge at the World Energy Council, what we're saying is we have to move the energy transitions conversation from Wall Street and out of the boardroom into Main Street. We have to help billions more people understand where energy transitions fit into their lives. And we have to help them understand their roles and their choices. So collaboration is not just between governments or between ministers and CEOs. The transition that we're facing requires us all to understand we have a role to play. And all of us have to be able to share in the benefits of the change that's going to come. So that's what we need. When we talk about collaboration, we mean a much broader sense of collaboration than is usually talked about.
Okay, Doctor, can you please elaborate on the multiple pathways towards energy transition that the World Energy Council advocates?
Yeah, so if we go, like I say, I've been going around the world. When I'm in China, I hear a story of ecological civilization and 4 productivity pathways and 1 global cooperation. So China is using all energy levers, all multiple sources, multiple pathways. They're building a very strong energy backbone, and they are putting onto it a lot of new energy services. When we come to Africa, which has very little infrastructure, we hear a different story. We hear a story of justice and resilience, which will then be followed by decarbonisation. The continent needs to create more energy and use that. When we come into Southeast Asia, again, we get a different story. These stories all combine what we might call managing decarbonisation with justice and resilience, balancing security with affordability and sustainability. But the different priorities vary between regions, and so do the pathways. And we have to respect that. We're not all starting in the same place in our journey to the future. We don't have to follow the same pathway, but we do have to make that journey together, and we have to lead with and learn from each other as we go, because how we got to here isn't going to get us to where we go next.
Okay, so how do you see the local initiatives and the citizen engagement shaping the future of energy transition, Doctor?
So the biggest blind spot in all energy transitions or net zero roadmaps is people and the shifting demand dynamics. So if we think about energy-related emissions, the minority of those come from the supply side, the majority come from the user side. So if we really want to have a climate positive system, we're going to have to include millions more users in the conversation.
Okay, so you mentioned in several interviews about the 5Ds energy transition. Can you please elaborate about 5Ds?
So the global drivers of energy developments are decarbonisation, digitalisation, decentralisation, diversification, and demand side and democracy, right? So those are the 5 global drivers that are playing out. Not just one thing, but 5 different things.
Okay, Doctor, what are the main challenges in managing those world energy trilemma, and how can they be addressed?
So the trilemma is a framework for integrated policy pathfinding. Energy security has to go hand in hand with affordability and sustainability. And the trilemma is evolving with new demands for justice and resilience. So this is challenging. How do you manage 5 things at once? And that's what we're learning to do. We're learning to walk forward as we juggle these 5 balls in all different regions. And that's the challenge and the opportunity.
Okay, so how do you envision the role of emerging technologies in accelerating the energy transition? Because earlier you mentioned it's not about technology, it's not about the money.
Well, of course, technology innovation will play a part. And the great excitement, I've come from Riyadh, where it was the Future Investment Summit. And I'm here in Adipec, and we're talking about innovation here as well. And the biggest innovation buzz around here is not hydrogen or green energy, it's artificial intelligence. And artificial intelligence will have 3 different things, play 3 different shaping roles in energy transitions. First of all, artificial intelligence, big data, can be used to do more predictive analytics and increase productivity and efficiency, which is great because we waste half the energy we produce in the world. Secondly, to do all that computing, we need more energy. Artificial intelligence is estimated to consume 8% of world energy demand. That's equivalent of the entire use of the USA in energy. And thirdly, if we're really going to make artificial intelligence help bring everybody along, we have to get real and understand that most data now that is used for energy purposes is behind paywalls, not in the public sector. So how do we stop data becoming the new oil and actually have the global energy information commons that can be used for the public good?
Okay, so how can these developing countries balance economic growth with the need for sustainable energy practices, including maybe your opinion about Indonesia itself?
So I think most people don't understand the sheer scale and scope of Indonesia. When you look at it on most maps, it just looks like an archipelago of countries. But when you actually understand that it actually spans the entire Russia landmass, you start thinking about the energy system that's needed there can't possibly be the same as you have in North America or other places. So Indonesia needs more renewables. It's trying to reduce its dependency on coal. But we also have to get real and understand that 20% of households in Indonesia are still burning biomass and forests for their basic energy. So the energy addition that Indonesia needs to meet its growing populations has to go hand in hand with its energy transition, but it's going to have to involve a diverse mix of resources, and it's going to have to involve an integration of its grid or a new type of connection system, and it's going to need more storage. So Indonesia is a very challenging design for its new energy system, but I'm sure that with the commitment of Indonesia itself, and the support of many neighbours and friends abroad, we will find a way of helping Indonesia carve its energy journey to the future as well.
Di tengah upaya berbagai negara mengakselerasi transisi ke energi bersih, China kini resmi punya platform injeksi thermal mobile pertama di dunia. Ini menjadi salah satu terobosan baru untuk mendorong peningkatan produksi minyak dengan menggunakan teknologi oil recovery. Diberi nama Thermal Recovery No. 1, platform ini diperkenalkan dan dioperasikan China National Offshore Oil Corporation atau CNOOC di perairan kota Weihai sebelah timur Provinsi Shandong. Platform ini dirancang untuk meningkatkan efisiensi dan skala ekstraksi minyak melalui proses injeksi termal. Dengan ukuran panjang 82 meter dan lebar 42 meter, platform ini dilengkapi dengan teknologi thermal recovery yang menggunakan pemanasan suhu tinggi untuk mengurangi kekentalan minyak sehingga mempermudah proses ekstraksinya. Dengan 4 kaki setinggi 70 meter, Thermal Recovery No. 1 ini bisa beroperasi di sumur offshore dengan air hingga kedalaman 35 meter dan diklaim mampu bertahan bahkan di tengah hantaman badai topan kategori 16. Perairan Laut Bohai, China, tempat platform baru ini beroperasi, memiliki kandungan hampir separuh dari total cadangan minyak China. China adalah negara dengan konsumsi minyak terbesar kedua di dunia. Di 2023, negara tirai bambu ini mencatatkan konsumsi sebesar 16,5 juta barel minyak per hari, setara dengan 16% permintaan global. Sementara produksi minyak China tercatat sebesar 4,2 juta barel per hari di 2023.
All right, so what role do you see for international cooperation in achieving global energy transition's goals?
So multiple different cooperation. So let's take capital markets. You're the investor daily, so let's talk about capital markets. At the moment, Indonesia is going to have to do climate mitigation and adaptation, but there is no revenue stream for climate adaptation. So how will we finance the energy transition in Indonesia if we don't get that going with capital markets? That's one type of cooperation. Another might be around technology transfer. What are the technologies that exist in the world and how can they be better deployed in Indonesia? And how can Indonesia afford to access those? The third bit has to be around people. We've got to think about what is the vision Indonesia has of its future and how does energy transition fit into that? It's not the other way around. It's not what does Europe think Indonesia should be doing. It's what's the story of Indonesia, its people, and how it perceives itself in the future and how energy transition is a way of achieving that, but doesn't dictate that.
Doctor, what message do you want to deliver to our new president, our new administration, especially about this green energy transitions?
So my message to Indonesia and to the new president, first of all, is congratulations. And secondly is, we're the World Energy Council and community. We've been operating for 100 years by including everybody in the conversation of energy and the journey to this future. So my invitation to Indonesia is please step up, join, be part of the conversation, bring a big delegation to World Energy Congress, and together I am confident that if we change the energy transition to a transitions narrative, we can really secure better energy for lives and a healthy planet.
Okay, final one, Doctor. How is your optimism on net zero emission 2050?
So I'm not an optimist or a pessimist. Both of those are passive emotions to the future. I'm a realistic hoper. So realistic hope is in action. We're off track. We're going to have to do climate adaptation and mitigation at the same time. And I'm optimistic. I'm confident that if actually people will put aside the politics and the polarization, and they will talk about partnership, if people will talk more about the dialogue than the divisiveness, then we stand a better chance of getting to the future we would all like to see.
Thank you so much, Dr. Wilkinson, for your time amidst your very busy schedule. And of course, your valuable insight. We all hope that the world can smoothly move on to the more eco-friendly economy, including green energy. Thank you and have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Dan pemirsa, demikian tadi diskusi kita dalam Investor Daily Special. Bersama dengan Sekretaris Jenderal dan CEO World Energy Council Dr. Angela Wilkinson, saya Iqbal Suitami Harja mewakili seluruh kru yang bertugas undur diri. Saksikan IDTV di First Media Channel 419 HD dan Channel 2 SD, IndiHome Channel 117, live streaming di investor.id, aplikasi video, serta Oxygen TV dan Dance TV. Saya Iqbal Suitami Harja sekali lagi. Terima kasih. Selamat mengucapkan atas kebersamaan Anda, IDTV Inspirasi Investasi.